And Chancellor Banks is joining me now on Picks and Politics. Good to have you here, Chancellor.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Important conversation to have with you at this point in time, right? Let's dive right in and begin with the federal investigation into the Department of Investigation. Are you surprised that the federal education system now is getting involved? Because it could really affect, for people who don't know what happens here, federal dollars that come to the system.
Well, first of all, the complaint that was filed with the Office of Civil Rights with the U.S. Department of Education really was focused on one particular school and one very specific complaint. It was not a system-wide investigation that's happening here. And we get complaints that are filed with the Federal Department of Education on a fairly regular basis.
Okay.
So this is another one. It is not to make light of the fact of what that complaint is. Any complaint...
What is the complaint?
Well, I can't get into the specifics, but it's essentially what we're seeing also around the city, where we have Jewish teachers who are feeling unsafe in their school, and that is completely unacceptable. But what I'm also uncovering is there are a wide range of Muslim teachers and students and Jewish students who are also feeling unsafe. And I think many of us are being affected by what's going on in the Middle East.
Yep.
It has visited itself upon what's happening in our schools, and we're going to make sure that we deal with it.
So let's peel back the layers of the onion here, because there's a lot to talk about. Let's start with Hillcrest High School and that incident that began with what we saw play out in that video that we just showed moments ago. Is that teacher back in the classroom? And if so, does that teacher have security?
Yes, that teacher, who is an amazing teacher, by the way, let me first of all say that, and has been very courageous even in this moment, suffered something that no teacher should have to suffer. To be targeted by a group of students for her religious faith is completely unacceptable. We made that very, very clear. But the teacher has been back in school now for the last several days. She is fine. She is safe.
Does she have security?
Yeah, well, we've made sure that we provided the appropriate level of security, so she is fine. Her physical safety is fine. But I think just as importantly, she's been well received by the teachers and the students who have welcomed her with open arms, many of whom have come up to her to say, we are so sorry for what has happened, and we're really utilizing this as a teachable moment.
And you went out there pretty quickly to have this press conference and really engage in the conversation with the teachers and students. But some teachers and parents held a rally after that. They called the response weak, saying that the incident wasn't made public for a couple days. What is your response to that, first and foremost? And then I'll talk about the disciplinary actions.
Well, first of all, when the horrific attacks happened on October 7th, I came out with an immediate statement where we absolutely condemned that. And I assured the fact that every teacher and every student in any of our schools has the right to be safe and to feel safe. And then that is what our focus has to be on. I'm sorry for those of us who, as it relates to Hillcrest, felt as though the statements were not strong enough. I went to Hillcrest, first of all, to find out what happened and to talk to the students, because the teacher posted something on her profile page holding a picture saying, I stand with Israel. That is absolutely within her right to do. And I could not understand why students would protest even that. And that's what we came to resolve.
And those students were pretty rowdy in that hallway, right? Obviously, that teacher was locked in an assistant principal's office. What is the disciplinary action for students that were involved?
Well, there are a number of students, I certainly don't want to get into giving students names or anything like that, who were kind of the ringleaders of it. And those students have been disciplined.
How so?
Well, there have been suspensions that have been made to those students. But we had hundreds of kids who were in the hallway, most of whom had no idea what was going on. Those kids weren't necessarily targeting the teacher. They were just jumping around. You have to remember, the school has 2,500 students in the building. It's a big school, and the bell rang. So all 2,500 kids were out in the hallways at that time, and so some of the kids started chanting against the teacher. A lot of other kids just joined in and started running around.
Those students who were suspended, are they back in school?
No, they are still on an extended suspension.
But not expelled?
Not expelled, but extended suspension, and will still be out for a while. But we're going to be engaging those kids as well.
You have talked about meeting with principals across the system now to talk about this conversation, right? Because you have students who are pro-Israel, you have students and teachers who are pro-Palestine, and they have to coexist and communicate. How are you going about that?
Well, first of all, I met with all the superintendents for the entire city just a few days ago. And the next day, I met with all the principals around the entire city of New York. And having this conversation, and we've got a number of outside organizations that we're going to be working with because we need help here. We don't necessarily have all the answers But there are lots of groups around the city and around the country who can help us in this moment in time. Some just to figure out how to have courageous conversations, like groups like Facing History and ourselves. And then we've got other groups as well who are going to help us to be able to promote anti-Semitic understanding of what anti-Semitism is and how it affects the Jewish people. And one thing I will tell you, a dear friend of mine, Devorah Haverstam, who lost her son in murder on the Brooklyn Bridge and oversees the Jewish Children's Museum. I've been working with her for close to 2 years now. We've been sending students from across the city to the Jewish Children's Museum so that we can promote understanding. We'll continue to build on that work.
I want to talk about the need for safety at a time like this, right? Which brings me to budget cuts, because that really affected not only your department, but system-wide across the city, these budget cuts. Looking ahead now, without the officers that are coming in, how much of a factor does that play into safety at a time like this when you need it?
Well, listen, the mayor recognizes, as do I, that safety is always paramount. We can't ever jeopardize the safety of our kids. And safety in schools is not simply the amount of police officers that we have. They play an important role, but they don't play the entire role.
There was that cancellation of classes for school safety agents. Is there any talk about bringing that back?
Well, you know, that's still really the mayor's decision, and many of those things will be negotiated with the city council. I don't actually make those decisions, how that rolls out. But we're going to work with who we've got, and we certainly always want to have more. We're close. We were very close to the number of school safety agents that we had prior to the pandemic. We've brought on hundreds more since we've been in office. But I understand that the mayor also has a very serious fiscal reality that he has to deal with, and we're going to do the best that we can with what we've got.
Looking at the cuts that you do have to make, right, and including some of the pre-K programs, some of the summer rising programs, obviously hurts what you've been trying to obtain in terms of moving people ahead within the education system, and he says more cuts are coming. What does that look like?
It's going to be very tough, Dan, and it's disheartening for me, because we had a grand vision of what we wanted to do in the system, and I think we know the things that we need to do, but we also need the resources to make those things happen.
What's the reality? Is there something else you're looking at cutting?
When you have the kind of pegs that are being put on us, it means that we're going to feel that in terms of programs. We're going to feel that in our school budgets. The mayor has made it clear that there's really no way around it. I'm certainly not happy about it. Yeah. No agency head would be. And I've got to do as best I can. But there will be a lot of pain that will be felt.
And just lastly, because I'm out of time here, on the teacher front, I know last time we talked about there's a teacher hiring freeze. Is that actually accurate?
Well, what we're doing with the teachers at this particular time, now, first of all, no teachers will lose their jobs, and even with all of this fiscal challenge. The PEG and the cuts will be made more to programs. We're not going to actually lose any folks who are coming in. So there's no freeze to speak of as it relates to the hiring of teachers as well.
Okay, good to know. Chancellor Banks, I appreciate your time. An important conversation. You're always welcome back.
Thank you so much, Dan.
All right.